Well, here we go with your Phil Steele Plus tour for Week 11. I've got 8 selections for you today. Try to mix it up a little bit. I'm going to give you 3 NFL selections, 5 college selections. Wasn't happy with the losing week last week, so let's have a big winning week this week. 8 games to look at, and as always, one of the main reasons for this tour is to show you how to use the Phil Steele site to its fullest. And by the way, at the Phil Steele site right now, if you go to the homepage and you click on the store and you go there, Phil Steele Plus, right now we've dropped it to the lowest price so far this year, just $49. You will have access to all of my college information, all of my NFL information, all of my FCS information, the same information I use, $49. And right now with the college playoffs potentially moving back to the end of January. Who knows when it'll end? We're talking about through February. So the rest of November, all of December, all of January, and for $49, you're getting it for just a couple bucks a week, basically. All this information at your fingertips. All right, let's get started with the game, though. I told you 8 selections. We got to cram them in here. Let's start off with the first game and go to the team pages. We are going to put Cincinnati against East Carolina. I actually have this one reversed a little bit. I always like to put the home team on the right. Cincinnati's the home team. So let's put Cincinnati on the right, and let's put East Carolina on the left and take a look at this one a little bit closer. Now, Cincinnati has been a buzzsaw. They opened up the year playing rather average football at the start of the year. Move that over a little bit here. But 94, 93, 92 is their average game grade. Remember, the average game grades out here take into account not just the final score of the game, but who you played. As an example, a nice big 55-20 win over Austin Peay only got him a 94 game grade. Meanwhile, a 42-13 similar win against SMU on the road got him 116 because SMU's a better team. It was on the road, and that's all factored in, as are the yards, total offense, total defense. Everything is factored into an average game grade. So they started out the season slow, but now they had 3 consecutive big games. A showdown for the AAC with SMU. They pull it out, 42-13, wasn't even close. Memphis at home. One thing I want to point out to you about the Memphis game, 21-10 at the half. These are the halftime scores of every game. So it was 21-10 at the half. Then Memphis started going for it on 4th down in the second half, turned the game into a blowout. But it still was an impressive win, 49-10. And last week they beat Houston 38-10. And Houston was considered a contender at the start of the year. And they do have a lot of talent. I think you'll see Houston play a lot better down the stretch. Next week, they have a huge game, UCF. And UCF has, of course, been the king of the AAC in recent years. Cincinnati upset them last year here at home on a Friday night. They were a big dog in that game, came out on top. If they're going to lose a game the rest of the year, this is the one that they have to worry about, UCF. And what does that mean? It means this little East Carolina game is a sandwich game. Coming off 3 big games, massive game next week at UCF. And this week, are laying 28 points to East Carolina. And I want to show you a little something here about last year's game. If you come over here, you look at the stats, you see that last year when they played East Carolina, they won the game 46-43. They only had 462 yards. East Carolina had 638. East Carolina had a 35-19 first down edge. And when you click on box score over here, it takes you right through the game. We could take a look at the fact that, let's go find this East Carolina game here. Here it is. We click on the box score, and we see that East Carolina led 28-21, 31-21, 31-28, 40-35. Cincy scores a touchdown. Cincy ties it up with a minute, or East Carolina ties it up with a minute 10 to go, and then Cincinnati on the final play of the game pulls out a 3-point win. East Carolina has the confidence they can play with Cincinnati based on that game, based on the fact it's a sandwich spot. And if we go back to this Tulsa game, and once again, collegepressbox.com provides us the box scores this year. I love these things. I go through the play-by-play of every single game. I mean play-by-play. I want to see every third down conversion, every play that happened in the game. Well, if we go to this East Carolina-Tulsa game, let me pull it over here so you can see the whole thing. You see that East Carolina was playing a strong Tulsa team and led them on the road 30-27. Tulsa got this late drive for a touchdown with 29 seconds left to pull out the win. And if we go to the play itself, let's go to the fourth quarter. This Tulsa drive. Here it is. Tulsa's driving down the field. I want to see if it's captured in here. They had a play where it was ruled a fumble on the field, and they overturned the fumble after a review. Okay, that's not noted here, but it happened watching the game. They overturned the fumble, and then the AAC said, wait, they shouldn't overturn the fumble. It was a fumble. Tulsa recovered. But that allowed East Carolina to continue on their drive and get that last score with just 20 seconds left in the game to pull out the win. But collegepressbox.com, you could tell what the stats are after 3 quarters, 2 quarters, 1 quarter, stats for the game. Here's your drive charts, who started. There's your starters for every single game. I love these things. And they're on every game. Just click right here. That gets you access to that. These are your halftime scores. These are your halftime scores for last year. These are your halftime scores for 18. These are your halftime scores for 17. You see them all the way down the line. And this is color-coded red and green. You can see here, East Carolina at one time had a powerhouse offense. 533 yards with Shane Carden at QB. 4,729 yards he passed for. That was with under a previous regime. Now, you might wonder, you say, well, who was the head coach then? Well, you come up here into the last 40 years' results. And it shows you every stat, every game since 1976. Now, East Carolina wasn't lined back in 76, so you can see that. They started getting lined here in 1985, 1984. We've got lines on every game. Take you back that far. So if you ever have to do any research, it's right here under the last 40 years. Here's your coaching. Mike Houston took over and corrected what Scotty Montgomery had going. I was really surprised when they fired Ruffin McNeil after this 5-7 injury-plagued year. Ruffin McNeil had him at 10-3, 8-5, 8-5. Lincoln Riley was his offensive coordinator. Yeah, the head coach of Oklahoma now was the offensive coordinator back for that 1 year that I showed you. But these go all the way back. All this access at your fingertips. Who was the stat leaders here in 2009? It's there. 2010, it's there. 2011, you could tell who the starters were all the way back. So that's on every page. Once again, I just try to get you to utilize Phil Steele Plus to its fullest. And right now, it's just $49 for the rest of the year. So even though Cincinnati right now is playing great, they actually are playing, well, this last year. Let's go to this year and see what the average game grades are for these two teams. They're playing at an 85. They're playing at a 105. So that is a 20-point edge. Plus home would be 23, but in a flat spot, you tighten that up a little bit. East Carolina's getting 28 points here. 28. So my sandwich game of the year, we're going to take East Carolina, a team that's confident because they played with Cincinnati last year. Lost the game late. They led it 31-21 at the half. And they're getting 28 points in a massive sandwich game, and they proved they could play against Tulsa. They played a good game against UCF earlier this year, only lost by 23. So we're going to take East Carolina plus 28 as your first selection. Now, one of the things I'm going to do for you today, I'm not going to tell you which games I'm giving you that are actual press box plays, but while Phil Steele Plus has been struggling a little bit, press box is not. Press box is 16-7, 72% the last 4 weeks. Nice winning week again last week. College Press Box is 11-4, 73% on the star basis the last 2 weeks. And I keep giving you discounts. I'm going to give you the discount again. If you want to get the rest of the regular season of college, it's $89. But if you type in the code football is back, you can take $20 off. It goes to $69. Same thing with the NFL. Get the rest of the NFL, $89. Type in football is back. It is $69. You want the postseason? $89. Type in this code, $20 off, $69. You can also get, as mentioned, Phil Steele Plus right now for $49. If you purchased all this separately, it's $316. Any Pressbox subscription comes with a Phil Steele Plus. So you get that with it. Now, if you've already paid for Phil Steele Plus and you sign up, we'll discount you the Phil Steele Plus that you paid. So it's all good. It's $316 value. Right now, the bundle is $179. If you go to the homepage, type in Elite Member, take $50 off, brings it down to $129. That gets you all the rest of the college regular season, all the rest of the NFL regular season, all the postseason. Phil Steele Plus, $129 right now if you type in Elite Member. And once again, you just go to the philsteele.com store, which is right here. Here is your Pressbox single issue if you want this week's for $20. Here is your bundle, here is your college edition, and here's your NFL edition. And here is your FCS access. But, all right, let's get to another game here. We're going to take a look at Northwestern against Purdue. Now, Northwestern's a visitor, so we're going to line them up on the left. Go to your team pages, put Northwestern on the left, and we're going to put Purdue on the right. So let's put Purdue on the right and see what we got going here. A couple things to note on this one. One thing that you might like is right here. When you click on the team name right here, you get the last 23 years matchups at your fingertips. As you can see, now these are color-coded green and red, so you can see at a glance, green means they won the game, red means they lost the game. Northwestern's actually beaten Purdue 5 of the last 6 games. And this tells you, once again, green is they covered the game, red is they lost the game. They are 4-2 against the spread. So you have a Northwestern team that's done well in the series. Now they're on the road. Does that concern you? Well, let's take a look over here. Here's the home team. Now the home team, the word win or loss means if they won straight up or lost straight up. The color means if they covered the game. So the home team is actually 1 win and 7 losses. The visitor is 7-1 against the spread. Northwestern, if we take a look at the last 4 times they've traveled to Purdue, they won outright 31-27 as a dog. They won outright 45-17. They were laying 13.5. They won outright 38-14 as a 1-point dog. They won outright 27-21 as an 8-point dog. So the last 4 trips to Purdue have all been fruitful. You've got a team that's dominated the series. The visitor has dominated the series. I like all that. And then we'll tuck in one more thing. As you know, utilize your magazine on a weekly basis. I use these boxes all the time. This is right there on your right-hand page of the magazine. You get spread records. How does Pat Fitzgerald do on the road? Well, last year he was 3-2 on the road, and that was in the 3-9 season, 3-2 against the spread. How about 4-1 against the spread, 3-1 against the spread, 4-1 against the spread, 3-1 against the spread, 3-2 against the spread? Pat Fitzgerald does great on the road against the spread. Every year's a winning year, 18-6 the last 6 years on the road. As an away dog the last 6 years. So you got to love the fact he's a favorite here, but does well as an away favorite as well. So all these great spread records for against the spread for Northwestern overall. Add it all up. To me, the line's cheap in this one. If you look at Northwestern, they dominated Maryland. They are playing, their defense is holding opponents to 136 yards per game below their season average. That's impressive. How about Purdue's defense? They're actually allowing opponents 165 yards per game above their season average. They have 460 to Iowa, 472 to Illinois. They're giving up 466 yards on a year. Now, the quarterback, Aiden O'Connell's going to put up big stats in the Jeff Brom offense. But I'm going to take Peyton Ramsey, the guy who led Indiana to a great record last year. Running game, Xander Horvath is good, but I actually like Drake Anderson, Isaiah Bowser. Defense, massive edge here to Northwestern, giving up 314 yards per game, 136 yards below the season average. They're giving 165 above the season average. So you add all those factors together, I think you got yourself a pretty good play. Northwestern's laying 2.5 on the road. They're playing to an average game grade of 110. Purdue's playing to an average game grade of 95. That says Purdue should be a lot higher favorite than this. We're taking Northwestern minus 2.5 on Purdue, and I'm not worried about the road. If they could beat Purdue with crowds out there, they can do a great job without the crowd there as well. Let's take a look at another one. And this one I'm going to show you, and I told you I'm going to give you some press box plays as part of your Phil Steele Plus tour. I'm going to give you one right now. We're going to take a look at Utah and UCLA. Now, there's not much to show you here on my team pages because Utah hasn't played. And the one thing that's going to do is going to skew some of the numbers because Utah hasn't played a game. As you see, they have not played. They have no average game grade. So if you looked at average game grade, UCLA would win the game by 90 points, but they haven't played, so you just discount that completely. UCLA went into Colorado last week. Let's take a look at the box score on that game. Well, here it is right here. They trailed 35-14 at the half, made a comeback at the end, only lost by 6. I feel Utah is one of the weaker, or UCLA is one of the weakest teams in the Pac-12. I feel Utah's a legitimate Pac-12 contender. Now, the line on this is 2.5. Once again, they're on the road, but how much does the road mean nowadays? Let me click out of this one and bring over the Utah-UCLA game. And we see that my computer says Utah will have a 453, 398-yard edge and win the game 40-27. They're laying 2.5. This is a very good Utah team, one of the best in the Pac-12, against what I feel is one of the weakest teams in the Pac-12. UCLA just lost to Colorado last week, which is also one of the weakest teams in the Pac-12. Now, when you get press box, you get this. You get my computer's projection on the game. You get all these numbers here, and then you get my complete breakdown of the game. I tell you that, Utah had their game canceled. Broussard did rush for 187 yards for the Buffs. Colorado led 35-7 late, or 35-14 late, or 35-7 late second quarter, and then UCLA made the comeback in that one. So it is a best bet this week. It's in press box. It's Utah 41, UCLA 24, and the line is 2.5. We're going to take Utah minus 2.5. There's a free press box play. Just thought I'd help you out with that one. Do make sure you sign up for press box for the rest of the year. All right, let's go to a misleading final. We're going to take a look at another matchup here. We're going to take a look at Stanford against Colorado. Now, Stanford's on the right, and this is my misleading final play. And we're going to put Stanford over here on the right, and we are going to put Colorado, their opponent, on the left. Now, as I mentioned, I feel Colorado and UCLA are both among the weakest teams in the Pac-12. So generally, you like to go against the winner of that game the next week. They beat what in my mind is a weak UCLA team last week. Broussard ran the ball well, 187 yards, and Sam Neuer ran the ball and threw the ball well, but they were taking on UCLA. Now they're taking on Utah, and they're playing them on the road. It's Neuer's first start this week, so that right there means that it could be a little bit of a struggle for his first road start. Last week, Stanford, and the reason I bring this up, a lot of national analysts have been saying, hey, Oregon just smacked Stanford last week, 35-14. Well, what I want to bring up is this. 90 minutes before game time, they tell David Shaw, you're not going to have your starting quarterback, Davis Mills. Here's Mills, hit 65% with 11.5 ratio. And you're also not going to have your top returning receiver, Connor Weddington from last year. So those are some pretty big losses 90 minutes before the game. Now, Jack West last year, if we go back and take a look at this Arizona State or UCLA game where he played, they were miserable. He took 7 sacks. He had 15 of 30 for 143 yards. When I saw that Jack West was going to start this game, it was a bit of a concern. Now, West played well. If you look up here, and when you click on individual stats, the individual stats pop up right here. Jack West hit 13 of 19 for 154. They did move the ball. And by the way, we can click here for individual player stats. This takes you back to last year. You can see the games Mills started, the games Mills missed. You can see the one game Jack West started was UCLA. After that start, they said, whoa, we got to go some way else. And they got Costello back in the action, and then Davis Mills took over at the end of the year. But all these stats are available for all the teams. Just click on individual player stats. If you want to know the start chart for each game, it's right here. The red means players that missed. Little started the opener last year, missed the rest of the year. These are counted as starts lost. We have this updated on every team for every game for last 10 years. It's all up there. It tells you how many starts are lost on defense, offense. You have all this at your fingertips. So if you're playing around trying to look for a good play, all this stuff is at your fingertips each week. Anyway, that's what happened with the Stanford game. But it wasn't just that. Let's take a look at the box score in the game. While it was 35-14, let's take a little bit closer look here. And we're going to look at a couple of drives for, let's just go up here to the abbreviated drives. Missed field goal, missed field goal, missed field goal, missed field goal. That's a 40-yard drive, a 17-yard drive, 66-yard drive, 58-yard drive. 4 long drives, all missed field goals for Stanford. Now, was that expected? Well, if you go flip to your magazine page, I'll show you what's on the magazine page. This is Jet Toner, the kicker for Stanford. He was the number 16 rated kicker out of high school in 25 starts in 17 to 18. As you know, you get a little bio on every player in the magazine. He had 35 of 41 field goals. So in his first 2 years, he missed 6 field goals. Last year in 7 starts, he missed 4 field goals all year. He had a long of 51. Okay, so this guy's missed 9 field goals in his career. He has made 47 field goals. That's a pretty good percentage. He was 0 for 4 on field goals in this game. Had Stanford kicked those 4 field goals like you would expect Jet Toner to do, final score in the game is 35-26. So, I mean, it was one of those games where everybody says Oregon looked so great last week. I'm looking at the yards, which were close, 496 to 413. The fact Stanford was shorthanded and missed all those field goals, to me, it's a misleading final. And I think that gives us value on Stanford this week. You have Colorado coming in off a win, Stanford off a loss. I think if these two teams had played last week, Stanford probably would have been about a 2-touchdown favorite. Now they're only about a 1-touchdown favorite in this one. So we're going to lock it in as your misleading final play. And your fourth play of the week, we're going to take Stanford minus the points over Colorado. We're going to take a look at another game. Now, this one's not a press box selection, but once again, I want to give you an idea of what's in press box. We'll take a look at the Miami of Florida against Virginia Tech game. Bring it over here. This is what you get in press box, complete right up here. This is everything I looked at for the game. It's all in here. You also get the yards projected rushing, passing. It shows here Miami with a 457, 429 yard edge, winning the game 33-30. And I project Miami to winning the game 34-30. Now, the reason I bring that up is they're an underdog for this game. And up right now on philsteele.com, you can check out the Vegas power ratings. They're right here. This shows you that, everybody has Notre Dame ranked ahead of Clemson right now because Notre Dame beat Clemson, right? Well, that's what you should do if you're an AP voter. It also shows you Coastal Carolina undefeated at number 15. If you're an AP voter, I don't doubt that one bit. Go ahead and rank them up there. They're unbeaten. But if Coastal Carolina, which is ranked here at number 53, 110, was to take on a team like, let's say, Auburn at 119, Auburn would be favored over Coastal Carolina, even though Auburn's not up there in the AP poll. Same thing with Texas. Even Michigan, which is just 1 and 2 right now, would be at least a 13-point favorite over Coastal Carolina. So even though Notre Dame beat Clemson last week, if those two were to meet on the field again this week, Clemson would be favored. And that's how the Vegas power ratings work. And Clemson would be favored. So I know Notre Dame deserves to be ranked ahead of Clemson. They beat them head-to-head. But this is your legitimate power rankings right here. It's up and available for you, and it's absolutely free. Just go to philsteele.com. When you go to philsteele.com, right here, you're at the front page. Here's the blogs. Click on the Vegas power ratings. We'll have more blogs up, like the college strength wins, pain of losses. All those will be up this week. When you click on FBS information, you come over here. If you want to, in fact, I haven't even looked at these this week. I'm going to. Let's take a look at your strength of wins, pain of losses. Clemson's still at the top with 17, and they lost to Notre Dame. So I want to show you something down here. Notre Dame doesn't have a loss, so they still get 0 losses. You get credit for every loss of a team you lose to, and you get credit for every win of the teams you beat. Clemson's up here at 17, BYU at 16, Alabama 15. Coastal's up there at 12 in these ratings. That's all good, but I find that fascinating. And then there's also the YPG factor, which is updated weekly on philsteele.com. If you go to the offensive, defensive YPP, let's see who's number 1. BYU's up there at top. They're holding their opponents 137 yards per game below, or their offense is gaining 137 yards above what their opponents normally allow. Their defense holding 91 below. Add them together, it's 228. Ohio State's 2, Clemson's 3, Bama's 4, Notre Dame playing well, Cincy playing well. Look at this. UCF's got 2 losses, but they're right up here at number 7. So that's pretty fascinating. See who's at the bottom. As you would expect, well, Utah State, they should fire their coach. Oh, they did. Massachusetts, Illinois is a banged-up team. Syracuse, Kansas. Look, Minnesota's down here at minus 150. So I think you find those fascinating. And that simply takes these numbers over here. Pac-12 is not a good one to have for that. Let's take a look at the Miami against Virginia Tech matchup this week. Miami on the left. We're going to put Virginia Tech on the right because Virginia Tech's the home team. And we're going to take a look at these averages for the two teams. They are playing at a power rating of 103.7, and they are playing at a power rating of 101. So it is pretty close, pretty competitive. I like the way De'Ara King's playing. You look at the fact that last week when Liberty played a mobile quarterback in Willis, we'll take a click on that. What did Willis do in the game for Liberty? Willis had 128 yards rushing, 20 of 30 passing, 217 yards. De'Ara King's a step above Willis, so I think he's going to give that Virginia Tech defense struggles. And one thing I want to point out, let's take a look at the defense. Miami's defense is actually holding opponents to 20 yards per game below their season average. Virginia Tech's allowing 35 points per game above their season average. I'm going to take De'Ara King. I like Cam Harris, a running back. Khalil Herbert, I want to point this out. When you're using your individual stats, if you're looking here, you'd be Herbert, 104, 208, 138, 143. Guy's been dynamic. Last week, 0 for 0. Guess what? He got hurt on the first play of the game against Liberty last week. You could tell that at a glance by looking at your individual stats. You didn't even have to watch the game. You're like, okay, something was wrong with Herbert last week. And it's a hamstring injury. We'll see if he's able to play the entire game. That could be another key factor because he has been the key part of their offense. This guy's averaging 8.3 yards per carry on the air. So add it all up. Your fifth and final FBS play, Miami of Florida, plus the points over Virginia Tech. Now, there is an FCS versus FCS game, and we're just going to look at it. It's not a play. but I just want to show you how quickly you become an expert on these teams. Do you know anything about Eastern Kentucky and Central Arkansas? And I'll be honest with you, I'm focused on the FBS right now. I'm not really following along. Central Arkansas is at home. So let's go ahead and put Central Arkansas on the right, and let's put Eastern Kentucky on the left. Now, you guys probably know nothing about these teams. I'm in my familiarity with them. A lot of this stuff will probably come back to me once I see it. Okay, there's Eastern Kentucky. Now, I've watched a couple Eastern Kentucky games this year. I like Alonzo Booth. He's a big, powerful Jerome Bettis type of running back. Patrick McKinney is an improved QB this year. Last year he had 52%. He's got 64% completions this year. Doing well. Now, Eastern Kentucky is just 2-5. They lost to Marshall, West Virginia. They beat the Citadel. That's an impressive win. Lost to Houston Baptist by 3. Only lost to Troy by 2. That's pretty good. Beat Central Arkansas, but only by 3. And then lost to SF Austin. They actually had a 460, 419-yard edge against Central. Let's take a look at Central. They beat Austin Peay by 7. Gets a good game against UAB, only losing by 10. Missouri State, they beat by 7. North Dakota State, they only lost by 11. That's a good game. Arkansas State, tough game. Missouri State, they beat them. They played at Eastern Kentucky. They lost by 3, and then they beat Missouri Western State, which isn't even an FCS team. It's a Division II team, 52-10. Okay, so we take a look at the two teams. Power ratings say they're a 71, they're a 65. That's about where they've got the number. They've got the number at 8. If you added 3 to the home edge, it'd be 74. That'd be about a 8.5 point favorite here. I think looking at the game in the first meeting, I like Central Arkansas to come out of there with the win. They actually lost. I believe I was leaning with Central Arkansas. I'm not sure on that, but I think the fact that they played them tough, tough to say. I think the line's priced well. Probably not a lot of value there, but that's a complete breakdown on the game, and now you know a little bit about them. Braylon Smith's their quarterback, hitting 57%. And by the way, when they start playing spring football this year, look at this. You got all this information on the FCS dating back to 2010. And for the last 2 years, you got individual player stats. You want to know how the Eastern Kentucky players have been doing game by game? Here it is. Booth rushed for 108 yards against Houston Baptist, his best game. Parker McKinley is their number 2 rusher. And if you want to look at individual stats, how they do last year, here's 2019's for Central Arkansas. This is what Braylon Smith did game by game last year. Did they play Eastern Kentucky last year? Let's see if they did. No, they did not. But that gives you a complete breakdown. I just thought I'd show you what's available on the FCS. No selection there. Let's turn our attention to 3 NFL games this week. All right, let's click on the NFL. I want to bring you up to date on a couple things with the NFL. We've got 2 sections that are out there. Well, I'm going to click on the homepage and go to the NFL. Under NFL info, when you click on strength of wins, pain of losses, this is our first game. Our first game is Cleveland, -3 against Houston. Now, if you beat an opponent, you get credit for every win they have. If you lose to an opponent, you get credit for every loss that team has. Cleveland right now actually has a fine record. If you look at their overall record, Cleveland is 13-5 on the year. So their 3 losses have been to pretty good teams. They've only lost 5 games, and their opponents have won 13 games. Not a lot, but they're 13-5. And Houston is 2-12. And how are they 2-12? Well, they've only got 2 wins this year. Both have been against Jacksonville, and Jacksonville only has 1 win. So they got credit for their Jacksonville win here and credit for the Jacksonville win here. They have 2 wins this year and 12 losses. So as Cleveland has got 5 losses, Houston has 12 this year in the loss column. In other words, their opponents that they lost to have lost 12 games. The opponents that Cleveland has lost to has lost 5 games. So let's go ahead and put Houston on the left, and we're going to come over here and put Cleveland on the right in this game. And now the one thing you could point out with Cleveland and Houston has played a tougher schedule. They've played playoff teams like Kansas City, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Tennessee, and Green Bay. They've lost all 5 of those. They also lost to Minnesota, and they've beaten Jacksonville twice. So you could say Houston has played a tougher schedule. But you could also say Cleveland is legitimately at 5-3, a potential playoff team. So the teams they've been losing to are a team maybe like Cleveland that's 5-3 this year. And meanwhile, Cleveland has been pretty much just beating bad teams. They beat Cincinnati, Washington, Dallas. They did beat Indianapolis. That's an impressive win. And they beat Cincinnati. Okay, they beat bad teams. They lose to good teams. Well, guess what? Cleveland's 5-3. They're a good team. Houston is 2-6. They're a bad team. Using that logic, we're going to take Cleveland -3 over Houston in this one. Cleveland did beat Indianapolis earlier this year. They're only laying 3. Cold weather. It's going to be chilly in Cleveland. That's another advantage when you're taking on a warm weather team. So add it all up, I like Cleveland -3 over Houston as your first NFL play. Now let's take a look at the Chargers against Miami. And this is going to be your not-so-obvious play, as like our final play is going to be this week. We take a look at the Chargers and Miami. Now, we went against Miami last week, okay? Right here on Phil Steele Plus. If you would have showed me the stats, Arizona, 442 to 312 yardage edge. Let's see if the things are in here. Yep. Go through the game. The Cardinals are up in this game 21-17, 24, then it's 24-24 here. Cardinals are up 31 to 24 after 3 quarters. So they got the lead. Then Miami, which had benefited, I believe they had a fumble return touchdown. Yeah, here it is, a 36-yard fumble return touchdown to open their scoring, kept them within 7. Then they rallied at the end and ended up winning by 3. But Arizona had the yardage edge in the game, 442 to 312. And once again, Miami is -62 yards per game on the year. They're winning, but they're winning with smoke and mirrors. Meanwhile, San Diego is losing, and they're losing basically with smoke and mirrors. They've had the lead against good teams. Kansas City, Carolina's a pretty decent team. Tampa Bay, New Orleans, Denver and Oakland lately, but they generally lead these games here 24-14 at the half. They're beating New Orleans on a Monday 20-10 at the half. Somehow, some way they lose the game, but they're plus 62 yards per game. I'm going to try it one more week against Miami, because when you got a team that's plus 62 yards per game, even though they're 2-6 and they're taking on a 5-3 team that's minus 62 yards per game, I think you got some great value there. The Chargers are an underdog, and if you look here, and we once again go to my NFL part here of the homepage. And under the NFL, we go to the offense and defense YPG. The Chargers are number 3 in the NFL. If you look at their average against opponents, what they do, they're plus 74.9 yards per game over what their opponents normally allow. Miami's at the very bottom, minus 72.7. So you have the number 3 against the number 30 team, and the number 3 team is an underdog. I'm going to take the LA Chargers plus 1.5 over Miami, a 2-6 team, to beat a 5-3 team. Now, that was your not-so-obvious play. Let's go to an obvious play this week, and we're going to take a look at Jacksonville against Green Bay. And believe it or not, guys, Green Bay's a 13-point favorite, and believe it or not, I'm going to lean with the Packers in this one. This, to me, is just an obvious play. Jacksonville's one of the weakest teams, is probably the weakest team in the NFL. Still scratching my head how they beat Indy. Look at this. They were outgained 445 to 241. They have lost every game since, even to Houston. Houston's only 2 wins of the season. Cincinnati beat them. Chargers beat them. They're a team that really struggles both offensively and defensively. They're minus 67 yards per game. Green Bay's much better than they were last year statistically. Remember, last year they were actually minus 8 yards per game on the season. This year they're plus 51. They lost a game to Minnesota in their last home game. A game maybe they took for granted. They were a big favorite in that one and ended up losing. They came back and won, beat San Francisco. And then the thing I want to point out here, we do have an NFL workbook which gives you all these stats. The Green Bay Packers are a very solid home favorite. If you go back here and look at their home favorite record, here's the last 10 years, 39, 23, and 2 as a home favorite. Also down here, how do they do outside their division and outside their conference, we want to know. So in non-division games, let's see, 3-2, home favorite, 3-2, 3-2, 5-2, 6-4, 8-5. 24, 15, and 2 is a home favorite non-division game. So they do pretty well there. Versus non-conference teams, 3-1, 3-1. They do well. Look at this, 20, 15, and 1 versus non-conference games. So they're good against non-conference, good outside the division. In fact, they're on a 9-2 run versus the AFC right now. So that's an outstanding number. Now let's go take a look at the Jacksonville page. And Jacksonville's just the opposite. If you take a look at them, how they have done, first of all, outside their conference. Look at this. 0-4, 1-3, 1-3, 1-3, 0-4, 1-3, 0-4. Jacksonville is actually, against the NFC, 4 wins and 26 losses. So they struggle there. They struggle as an away dog. Let's see what their record is in away dog. 3-4, 1-4-1. This year they're struggling. The last 3 years they are 5-10-1 as an away dog. So if you look under the individual stats, last week their quarterback, let's go back to Jacksonville here. Individual player stats. Last week their quarterback Minshew not available. They went with Jake Luton from Oregon State. Now Luton had a good game at home, but if it could be Luton again against the Green Bay Packers. They got some guy, Aaron Rodgers, you might have heard of him. Pretty good quarterback. And is he playing well this year? How about 24 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions on the season? You have a warm weather team taking on a cold weather team. It will be cold. Not saying it's going to snow or anything, but it'll be cold. And you're only laying 13 points. Green Bay in the thick of the playoffs. Jacksonville, one of the weakest teams in the league. To me, it's an obvious play, so we're going to go with it. We're going to go with an obvious play after going with some not-so-obvious plays and take the Green Bay Packers minus 13. Don't forget your discounts on PressBox. Phil Steele Plus down to $49 this week. Make sure you check it out. And hopefully we got 8 big games for you this week. Hopefully we deliver for you some winners. And I'll be back with you next week with your free Phil Steele Plus tour with selections.